welcome to another episode of Farm Fresh Bites. My name is Maya, and today we're going to be using some of the farm Swiss chard and onions to cook up the Swiss chard with some cannellini beans, or you can use Great Northern beans. We're going to cook those up in a skillet, and yeah, it's going to be super cool. So stay tuned for this week's code word that you can use at Farm Stand to get yourself some health bucks, get a little discount, and get some farm fresh produce. So stay tuned, and we're gonna get started. Alright, so the first step is to cut up your Swiss chard, cut up your greens, your kale. So if you want, you can use just Swiss chard, you can use spinach, which are more tender greens, or you can use a mixture of greens that include some hardier leafy greens like kale or collards. Kale is probably better to match up with the Swiss chard, so I would use that. And you're just going to remove the stems from the leaves, and then you're going to chop the leaves up into a small rough chop. And once you're done chopping up the leaves, you can start to chop up the stems, which you can cook and are edible and are full of lots of good fiber and minerals and nutrients. And you can just cut those up and cook those with your onions so that they get a little head start, can get tender, and add some extra flavor to your dish. After you're done cutting up the greens and stems, you can then start to cut up the onions, and you're going to dice the onions up into a small dice. Next, you'll get your skillet onto a medium-high flame. Add some oil. You're going to add in your onions and your chopped stems first and cook those up. Add some salt, add some garlic powder, get them sauteed and starting to get tender and translucent. Once they're tender and translucent, you can add in your leafy greens, starting with the hardiest greens, so the greens that are the most sturdy and will take the longest. If you're mixing your greens, you want to cook those greens first, and then once they start to get a little tender, then you can add your more succulent, juicy, quick cooking greens like Swiss chard or spinach. So you can add those into the pot, and then you're just going to let everything cook together until it gets nice and tender and juicy but not mushy. You still want the colors to be bright, so you only need about 5 or 8 minutes for them to cook total. Then once your greens are cooked, you're going to add in your can of beans. You can either use Great Northern beans, which have a nice buttery flavor to them, or you can use cannellini, which are a little bit more firm but also have some butteriness to them and are really yummy. So you can add one or the other into your greens, toss it up together, and then let it cook. Taste it a little bit, see if it needs some more salt and garlic or pepper or other spices you want to add. And then you can add a little splash of vinegar, and and then you add all that together, let it simmer for about 5 or so more minutes, and then you can get ready to serve it up. This week's code word is okra swans, which you can use at the Saturday farm stand to get yourself some health bucks. Once all the greens and the beans are cooked together and all the flavors are melted, you can serve it up on a plate or inside a bowl, eat it with your favorite crunchy bread, and enjoy it.